Heyo, welcome back to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony here with Vinny once again. I think this is the new norm. We're back on Zoom. We're probably going to be ripping these outside of special occasions for a while. And then when we do get together in person, we'll do some more. But at this point, we are going to be on Zoom for most of these episodes. So this is going to be the new normal. Nothing's changing. Just not going to see us together in person for a while, probably. But we will still have these weekly episodes, and we'll still be doing that. Today, exciting episode, rookie hot takes. This was a very, very fun episode last year. So we got three each. Same thing. We're doing, we'll go into it. We each went one of three last year. Vinny had Travis Hunter finishing outside the top 24, which at the time was absolutely a hot take. And Travis Hunter flopped. So that was a great call. And then I hit on Dart being the Giants' starting QB by week 10. And he was
That was our
starting
best one.
QB by like
Yeah,
week
earlier.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, week
So
5. So
so
that was a
that was a
great
good
take.
one, especially because it was like, all right, well, Dart's gonna sit for a year, and then sure enough, it was like he came out of the woodworks. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, we got a little bit of news to talk about briefly, but then we'll go ahead and get into these takes. So news real quick: Juwan Jennings to the Vikings. Vinny, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I feel like he's a little bit at the point of his career where it's not like a massive move. I think if anything, it's already a crowded room there with Addison and Jefferson. So find it hard to believe he'll be relevant unless there's an injury to one of those two or some sort of role that we're not aware of at this point. But yeah, does not really a big needle mover for me. Not really interested in him in drafts.
Yeah, I honestly I'm with you on that. I think it's great for the Vikings, but I,
Yeah,
I don't think it really matters for fantasy. Like he'll be a great wide receiver three there, but it's a 1 year deal. He waited a while to get that deal. Um, you know, so I think I'd still be I wouldn't move Jefferson or Addison down either. I think they're still going to be both very good. I think Addison's probably going under drafted right now. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Jennings, but definitely an important name to bring up as it's a good move for the Vikings.
Mhm.
Brees Hall with an extension, huge deal, 3 year deal. He's getting like 15 million a year. I believe that
Yeah,
puts him top four
I
in
think I saw
rankings
third,
per year.
third overall, third in
Wow.
money per year. Yeah,
Yeah, so he's up there and getting that money per year. As for fantasy, I talked about this last week a little bit where I was like, I feel like I'm overcorrecting from being a little bullish on some of the Jets players last year. And I was like, well, I don't want any part of it. But the Jets offense is improved. When we do look at it, it's improving. Like you
Mhm.
draft Omar Cooper, you draft Kenyon Sadiq in the first round. You bring in Geno Smith, which it's not great, but it is an upgrade from what they had. Then the O line should be okay. Like I think Brees, it depending on where he's going right now in drafts, I think he could be underdrafted right now as well. Like I think Brees, this just locks in his role for sure. Braylon Allen to me is not a threat. I think this is good news for Brees, and it's still the Jets, but honestly, like there's a glimmer of hope there.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. There is like always some sort of value at some point for a player, even if it's like, of course, a team like the Jets who have been a dumpster fire, not only for fantasy, but just in real life too. But I see what you mean that like a lot of people are going to be off of him. And this extension shows their, loyalty to him, the role that they have in mind for him. Offensive moves have been made. I still, I'd have to see where his ADP shakes out when drafts start to get going. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It is something to kind of monitor where it's like if he's third, fourth round, you have an upside RB1 in that spot. So yeah, no, definitely something to monitor. And I guess they committed to him. We all thought he was going to go
Yeah.
to a different team, but there you go.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up his ranking on Fantasy Pros is 15. His ADP is RB 17,
Wow.
33rd overall, which I believe that's back end of the third.
Wow. I
Um,
mean,
How would you feel about Brees at that spot?
That feels good to me, especially just hearing the number RB17. Because
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know the exact range that you're looking at right now, but I'm sure there's a lot of names there that are in some sort of committee, where there's other guys taking touches, and that doesn't feel like the case for Brees really. It's a pretty open backfield where he's the guy. So obviously they paid him to be the guy. So that feels good at the end of the third for an upside RB1.
I think so too. Like RB14 is Josh Jacobs. He's the guy, right? But then 15, 16, 17 are all going back to back to back. Kyron Williams, who, well, Blake Corum is there. And
Yep.
Travis Etienne at 16. I mean, he just got paid. I know people have their worries though that he's not actually that good, but he should be the guy. And then Brees Hall. After that, you got Javonte Williams going 4 spots later at 37 overall. Then you drop. Then you get Bucky Irving, Cam Scadaboo, Travion Henderson. And it feels like he's kind of one of the last. I mean, Brees and Javante, it feels like those two are the last of that, those are the guy. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm with you. I feel like that should be his backfield. That feels like a good spot overall.
Yeah, I agree.
And lastly, David Njoku to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think that's a shock. I thought he was going to go to like the Dolphins was my prediction. Um, I didn't end up finishing how well I did with my predictions, but just because some of them are still waiting. But yeah, I think overall, I think it's fine. I'm honestly not going to be in on Njoku, I don't think, because Gadsden is there. I think Gadsden moves down a little bit. I think they'll be getting split a little bit. I think this is good news for Herbert, good news for the offense overall, but it doesn't really sway me. I think he could have landed in such a better spot, the Panthers, he could have landed with the Dolphins as I just said. There were some teams where he could have landed in a great spot. Chargers, it's fun, but it's not great for him for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, no, I was sort of looking in because I was looking at the, free agents still available right now, and Njoku was a name where I was like, wow, how hasn't he been signed yet? 2 years ago, he had that monster year, sort of like breakout year in a way. I know he's in his age 30 season or something like that, 29 maybe. But I did look into it a little bit, and he's just been rattled with injuries. Not a good year last year, not a good finish. So it kind of made sense that teams were kind of out on a 30-year-old tight end who just had his breakout year a couple of years ago and was followed by an injury-riddled season. So yeah, I agree. It seems like a kind of good football move, but it sucks for Gadsden. I think a lot of people were on him to have a big breakout year after showing some flashes, but again, I don't think it's going to get in the way. It might get in the way of that a little bit, but there's still potential for it. But yeah, good football move.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's do these hot takes. So, just to preface before we get into our take specifically, both of us spent quite some time on this. Um, Mostly because it was difficult to find hot takes that we actually believed in, right? Like you look through the QBs as we talked about, a lot of them, who knows when they start. The tight ends, who knows? There were some blocking tight ends who went early. So some of these were just some difficult things to decide on because it feels like their potential for a lot of these guys and when they actually start making an impact might not be till year two or beyond that. So this was tough for like, all right, year one rookie hot takes. We both went 1 for 3 last year. We'll see what we do. I know I went with some spicy takes this year. Like I went as hot as I could go.
You did. I
So
respect it.
I wanted to have fun with it. Honestly, I will assume like I will be expecting to go over 3, but I wanted to have fun with these takes anyways. But we each did three again. We did come up with three. Um, so yeah, Vinny, why don't you start off with your first one, whichever one you'd like to go with, and
Sure.
we'll just get into it.
Yeah, I will, again, echo what you said, perhaps a little bit of that. It was sort of tough because you do have to be some sort of realistic in some way. You can just be like, oh, this seventh round running back is going to finish as an RB2. Like that just doesn't happen often. So often enough to make it, that would be a screaming hot take. But so yeah, I'll start with mine here. So my first one's going to be Jeremiah Love will not finish as an RB1 and there will not be another rookie running back inside the top 20 besides Love. So I still think he'll be in that RB2 range, but no other rookie running back will be inside that top 20 or be in RB2 range. I'll go top 24. But the main take here, I think, is that Jeremiah Love won't finish as an RB1. So that's in top 12 in PPR formats. The reason I feel like this is a hot take is because I feel like it's kind of become the norm for rookies. There's always this rookie running back fever that you get. We saw it with Genty last year. I was a part of it. And then we see they have some struggles early on. There are guys that like Gibbs and Bijan who do it right away and are kind of these, household names right away, first round picks in redraft leagues. But then there's years like Genty where he still finished as an RB1, but he was out in the top. He was 11th overall, I believe. And that doesn't feel like this hype, this high draft pick, and then 11th overall. Still an RB1, but back end. So the more we've talked a lot on the podcast about how we like Jeremiah Love. I still like Jeremiah Love, the player, but the more I look at the situation in Arizona, it just confuses me. It's hard for me to buy into him being a stud right off the bat. I do think that talent prevails, but the RB room just makes no sense to me right now. They have James Conner, who's coming off an injury and, could be a cut candidate. They have Trey Benson, who was injured last season as well, but he's a former second-round pick. Then they just signed Tyler Algier to a 1 or 2 year deal. So they prioritize the running back position prior to the draft. Then they spend a top 3 pick on Jeremiah Love. All of that considered, it is just kind of making me want to stray away from Love, unfortunately. Unless he becomes some sort of value, but I still think people are very high on him. He's going to be the big new name that everyone thinks or just expects a rookie running back to show up and be inside that top 12. I'm going to say he doesn't. And that feels like, maybe it's not as much of a hot take, but I just think because of the fever of rookie running backs and how everyone loves them, everyone just expects them to finish in that range. I'm going to kind of go against the grain here and say that he doesn't. And then, we talked about this rookie running back class being weak overall. I'm going to go a step further and say that there will be no other rookie running back inside the top 24 besides Love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, right? They bring in Algier, then they
Yeah.
re-sign or they restructure Connor's contract so he can stay on the team. Benson's under contract. It is a weird room. I think it's
Yeah.
a good take.
Yeah. It
And
just those guys have to get involved somehow. And you spent a top 3 pick, so that guy's going to get involved. But it just feels like a mess, sort of. And I'm not going to spend a first round pick in a redraft league to have that mess be figured out.
I I do think we'll see some clarity with the room over time,
Yeah.
and I do
Yeah.
think Love will be the guy. I think he'll finish top 12, so I like the take because it is
Okay.
pretty
Yeah.
spicy. ADP though, I don't know what's going on. ADP has him at 13 right now, RB 13. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe
Mm.
RB 12. RB 12. He Fantasy Pros just has this weird average 12.5, but tied with Derrick Henry. But overall, he's going one spot above Derrick Henry. So we'll say 12.
Interesting.
So he's
Yeah.
going at that back end, which that's fine. I think that's a fine spot, but it really feels hard for him not to finish there. So I think it's a good take. We'll see how crowded the room gets, and
Hmm.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. I wanted to save my first take for last anyways, just because it's my favorite one. And honestly, I think this kind of goes against what you just said. So this will be a fun one to hop into here. My first take I'm going to talk about is Nick Singleton finishing as a top 24 running back. All right, well, who the fuck is Nick Singleton? Nick Singleton, fifth round running back out of Penn State, goes to the Titans. And the reason there's a bunch of reasons I wrote down here as to why I think this could happen. One, you need opportunity, and there's going to be opportunity there. There's not a true running back that he has to carve out a role. Like some of these other rookies, they need to carve out a role over some other studs. Mike Washington is now behind Ashton Genty. Emmett Johnson, who you like, is behind Ken Walker. That's a brutal situation. Nick Singleton's behind Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. All right, nice. And they're both on expiring contracts. So
Yeah.
like they don't need to be used. They could literally just say, all right, we got this rookie. I like how he looks. We want to give him opportunity. Throw him in there. We don't need to use Pollard and Spears. They're both on expiring deals. Neither was that good either last year. When you look at their fantasy output, their actual output of their yards after contract, things like that, those stats. I mean, that says a lot. The opportunity is absolutely there. Nick Singleton was also a five-star running back coming out of high school. So he did play 4 years at Penn State, and he's kind of like declined towards his senior year. So I understand there's, it's okay. Like there's some worry there. I get it, but he has the pedigree. He's a five-star running back coming out of high school. He's also an elite pass catcher with nearly 1,000 career receiving yards at Penn State. That's big time. We love receiving backs for fantasy football. So I really like that aspect. And Tajay Spears is fine, but like, okay, like if this guy comes in and he's actually that good, like that could just mean he plays over Spears. Even if they continue to play Pollard, he could just win that receiving role over Spears, and he'll have value alone right there. He does have the big play breakaway ability, which you love. That's the things you love about like Jahmyr Gibbs, Travion Henderson. Oh wow, they have that ability. That's huge for fantasy as well. So yeah, both of those are big for fantasy. He's also a pretty big back and had 11 touchdowns from inside the 5 yard line last year. That's also a big deal. So not only can he catch passes, but he can also score at the goal line. Like, okay, so we're talking about a big back who can catch. What is this? Like, it honestly doesn't even add up. Like, that's sick. Like, I want that running back on my team.
Yeah.
Then we look at this game he had against Indiana, who, keep in mind, are the reigning champs in college, undefeated season, unbelievable team. 13 touches, 93 yards, three touchdowns against this team. He had a breakaway run. He was scoring at the goal line. He just looked good in some of what he did. In my in the breakout episode, I think I was doing that one myself. Some of the things you need to break out. Okay, opportunities. Just talked about that. That will be there. The efficiency is not the most efficient, but I can get over that if the opportunities are there. The red zone usage, I think he will get that, or he at least could over Pollard. And good offenses. No, the Titans weren't the best, but I think that this could be a much better offense than it was last year. I like Dable working with Cam Ward. We talked about some of the receivers they've added. They're just improving the offense as a whole. And sure, he is inconsistent, and he took a backseat to Katron Allen this year. And it's like, okay, well, that's concerning. Yeah, I can understand that. But I think the potential is there. Like, this guy is good. I watched some of the tape to just like, all right, let's see if I like how this guy runs. And he was pretty exciting to watch. So my take there, I think the opportunity is there. Nick Singleton, I think he can finish as a top 24 running back. Spicy, but we're going
Yeah,
home run right there.
I like it, honestly. I mean, we talked about in the draft recap episode that I mentioned that this was like a big dynasty name prior to the last college season beginning. So like the more you talk about, like, it's easy to, even though he was a fifth round pick, it's easier to get back on a guy when you bring up like 5-star recruit. Like he's done it. He's been the guy everywhere he went, and he just kind of had a down season. Like I said, it reminds me a little bit of like Ollie Gordon, where he was a big time recruit, massive. Like he won the best running back in the country award the year before he got drafted, and then he just goes late. But he had HN there. Like you mentioned, Singleton has no one there. I mean, just he has Pollard and Spears, but those guys had their shot, and they haven't taken it. So, the way you explained it, I could get behind that take. It definitely is a hot take, but top 24, let's see it.
Yeah, Pollard, I just looked up his age too. He's 29. He's done. Um,
Yep, he's reaching that like running back graveyard
yeah.
kind of
Tajay
age.
Spears, he's 24, but it's like he hasn't worked
Wow.
out. I mean, he didn't win the job over Pollard last year when Pollard was
Yep.
extremely inefficient. Spears was inefficient as well. And you said it, like he had a down year, which I understand the concerns. Maybe that means he's peaked already, and that's certainly a possibility. But I'm in. Like, Nick Singleton, how old is he? He might be a little. I mean, he's 22. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in on this guy. I think it's definitely a hot take, and please don't go drafting Singleton as this like, unless you want to take the shot in like one of the last rounds. Don't go drafting him like he's going to be great. I may
Yep.
end up taking some shots late just because of everything I explained, but yeah, the potential is there, but it definitely has the potential to absolutely flop as well.
I mean, it's also not outrageous. Like we see it every year where these late round running backs have some sort of role, become waiver wire guys. So, the potential's there. It's not outrageous, but I like the take.
Yeah, you just looking last year, for example, right? Bashal Tutin, fourth round. Cam Scadaboo, fourth round. Dylan Sampson, fourth round. So all of those guys who had some value, at least in parts of the season, were fourth round guys. That's day three. Fifth round doesn't really make a difference to me, you know. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Like Scadaboo was incredible. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I like it.
yeah, why don't you hit us with your second one, whichever one you want to do.
Sure, yeah. I'll go with this one. So my second hot take is going to be that Jordyn Tyson of the New Orleans Saints just drafted. Well, obviously this is a rookie episode, but he drafted at the 108, eighth overall pick in the first round. Will not finish inside the top 36 receivers in PPR. Now, this
Spicy.
is probably my hottest take because I think you hear the draft capital, you hear 108, you think, oh, that guy's got to finish at least a wide receiver three just based on volume alone and capital. That's usually pushes the needle. My concerns with his situation is we have injury concerns. That's what a lot of people were talking about coming into the draft, that he was very varied, that they felt he was a top talent in the draft at receiver, and people would switch him between Tate, him, Tyson were kind of the one and two switching back and forth. Um, I think injuries got in the way and kind of made the reason that Tate was kind of that first overall receiver taken. Um, so that's a concern. You never wish for injuries, and I can't hope for injuries, of course, that this take works out. But um, also, the receiving room, we talked about it. This might be a little bit repetitive when we were doing the recap, but I'm just not convinced Tyler Shuck can support two relevant fantasy wide receivers. And I know you're kind of mentioning guys like Devon Vele had some decent weeks. There just wasn't enough end of season production for me there to just full on believe in this guy Tyson just because he was a number one or eight overall pick. So for me, this take has more to do with situation and that not truly believing that Tyler Shuck is, this gunslinger quarterback that can support two elite wide receivers, because obviously Chris Olave is there and kind of already had his breakout year where he seems to be the guy and then some there. And then, I was also taking a peek at some of the stats just to see if, like, where got receivers finished last year, just to see if it was truly outrageous. Because I was like, wide receiver three does feel low. But some of these names that I'm seeing here, just to go from like 30 on, we have, 28. We'll start at Alec Pierce at a 1,000-yard season, just got paid massive money. He's the 28th overall wide receiver last year in PPR formats. Lad McConkey, big rookie name in his first year, had a down year, but he was 30th overall at receiver. There's still good names down in this wide receiver three kind of area of rankings. So it's like, it just feels right for Tyson to, if I'm down on him, and I don't think he's going to have as big of a year as some of these other rookie receivers in the class, which I'll get to a take in my next take. I just feel like he's the most bust potential out of these kind of group of Tate, Lemon. Tate and Lemon out of those guys that went inside the early first. So, not much stat to back it up, just kind of a gut feeling that this situation won't support two wide receivers. And the range of names that were there last season seems fitting for a guy in his rookie season, of course, to kind of fit in well there rather than high-end wide receiver one or wide receiver two.
Another spicy one. I think it is definitely we haven't seen Shuck support enough of a second guy. I just think there's going to be enough talent there for Tyson where it's like, okay, these two guys, it'll balance out a little bit where he can go to either Olave or Tyson, and I think he'll find his way into the top 36. But honestly, I like the take. If you don't like him, you don't reach on him.
All my takes,
So
I'm hating today. I'm hating
yeah,
on Jeremiah Love,
yeah,
Tyson.
yeah.
I got some love in my next take, so don't worry. But I'm a hater.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, I think it's a good take. We'll see. I think injury woes could definitely be the biggest thing to take him out of that top 36 for sure, too.
Yep.
All right, let me do my second one. Again, I'm gonna save my favorite for last. All of mine are really spicy. Let me be clear on that. So, this next take, this is an extremely hot take. Like I mean an extremely hot take. But I have Chris Bell. Uh, where was he? Third round, right? Yep. Third third round, end of the third. I was big on him last week. Chris Bell, I have him leading the Dolphins in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and finishing as a top 24 wide receiver. And it's like, wow, wow, this is the second wide receiver the Dolphins took. Why are you big on this guy? Like leading in all three categories and finishing top 24. All right, let me explain. So late season, he had an ACL tear. It was in November, so I get that he could be delayed getting into practice, into OTAs, all those things, into camp. He slipped to the late third because of that. But this guy profiled as not even potential. He profiled as a first rounder prior to the injury. You look at the tape. This guy has breakaway speed. He was doing a lot on like slant routes, and it was like, okay, slant routes, you don't usually get a lot of yards per reception when you're running these short routes. He was getting a lot of yards per route. He's just an explosive guy. He's a clean route runner, really fun to watch. He's a big guy too. Um, but like for example, too, this guy went 9 for 136 and two touchdowns versus Miami, who Miami had an elite defense. They went to the Natty and
Yep.
they lost to Indiana, but they went to the Natty with a really good defense. Um, as I said, elite slant guy with breakaway speed. So this guy is just like he can get it done. Some comps, just to put into perspective of who this guy could be. He's been comped to AJ Brown, Demarius Thomas, DJ Moore, and Debo Samuel. Like these are all guys who had some great seasons in the NFL. Some are still having great seasons in the NFL, right? So I think that's really important when you're seeing some of these comps. They're comping him to some really good players. You see rookie comps all the time, and it's like, oh well, here's this guy. He's being comped to. I forget. I watched another guy and they were like, "Oh, I comp him to Cedric Wilson." All right, well, Cedric Wilson never did anything for fantasy, so it's like when you see the comps to these other names, AJ Brown, Demarius Thomas, DJ Moore, and Debo, it's like, oh, well, hold on, now I'm excited. You got me leaning forward in my seat here. I watched a lot of these underdog videos, like their draft profiles. They even suggest that this could be a potential like Rashi Rice type role early in his career, just like being that slant guy, those early yards. Like that's huge for PPR, right? So I don't see any issues with him getting into top 24 if he has that Rashi Rice type role. That could be great for Malik Willis too. Check down, easy slant routes, right? I love that. His coach is Dion Branch, former NFL wide
Mm,
receiver who was very good in the NFL. That
interesting.
I like a lot. I think that's great. He had in this last season alone before the injury, 11 games, that was his lowest, but he had 72 receptions, 917 yards and 6 touchdowns, which were all career highs in
Wow.
only those 11 games. Like this guy is a stud. Um, in the wide receiver breakout episode, I'm going to go right back to that breakout episode, talk about things here. Target volume and opportunity. You need that to break out. That can absolutely be there for Chris Bell. I think the talent is there. He's probably the most talented as long as he comes back from that ACL injury to be somebody who he was. I think he's the most talented in that wide receiver room for Miami, and the opportunity is absolutely there. There is nobody in there who is like, this is the guy. There's not one guy where you could pinpoint and say, this guy's going to get all the opportunity. So I'm giving it to Chris Bell here. I love the volume opportunity. Um, he's an elite talent. I'm in on that. I think the talent is there. So those two things, you check the box off. You want to be a good team QB? All right, I get it. This team's probably not going to be good. Malik Willis, is he good? I don't know. I just think at some point like that gets overshadowed with the target volume and opportunity and his talent alone. So I'm in on this guy. I'm really in on this guy. The upside I think is through the roof for Chris Bell. It's absolutely a question as to when he will return to play. But like I said, Miami has nobody there. There's not one person you can say, hey, this guy is going to get targets over him. So if he returns to form, any bit of form that he was like before the injury, I think Chris Bell we're looking at as a rock solid option for fantasy football, and we're looking at the wide receiver one for the Dolphins.
Yeah, no, I think this is our hottest take by far because I was just counting up
Probably.
the receivers, and that's the 18th receiver off the board. And you mentioned that he's the second receiver drafted by his team in the draft, so he wasn't the first. Yeah, I think again, this kind of follows like the Singleton sort of path where it's easier in my mind to bet on guys that have had previous production than bet on like tools and development. Because it's there. In some guys peak and they'll miss. This might be a miss, but the production's there. The talent is there. You just explained all that through the stats. So you mentioned him in our recap video, and I've kind of been eyeing him. I have a current Dynasty rookie draft going on right now, and we're just ending the first round, but
Is it a
who
slow
knows?
draft?
It's a slow draft, so it's
Okay.
going to take a while. So, but I'm going to have to monitor kind of where everyone's going with their picks because I like this take. I really do. I mean, again, hot takes, top 24 is ambitious, but that's the point of this episode
Yeah.
to kind of put your stamp on a guy and see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Just go watch the tape. If you haven't seen his tape, go watch. It
I
is
will.
it is fun to see this guy like
Really?
slant
Okay.
routes bursting down the sideline like he's winning contested catches. He's a big guy with speed, so he's
Really?
a sick player. I want to pause before we get to our last takes here. You just mentioned the dynasty, so I'm curious, how many picks do you have in this draft? What pick did you just have in the first, and who'd you take?
So unfortunately, there's not much news on that end because I traded my first and second
Okay.
round pick in season. The
All right.
trade was part of a trade for Mahomes. So I'm very happy that this is a weak draft overall, and I got Mahomes, a quarterback that I can have for the next at least 5 years. So happy with that. But I can read out how the order kind of went of the people in the
Sure.
league if you
Yeah.
want. Yeah, so it went. Someone traded up for Jeremiah Love. It was involving the fourth overall pick, Marvin Harrison, and more draft capital. So I didn't think it was enough, but the guy was a believer in Marv. Then we went Mendoza at two. It
Wow.
is a super flex league, so that's
Okay.
important to
That
mention.
makes sense.
Um, Carnell Tate went third. Jordyn Tyson went fourth. Makai Lemon went fifth. Jaren Price went sixth.
That feels late. That feels
For
really late for
for
Price.
Price.
Yeah.
I mean, once you kind of it is early, I think. I think it's a good spot for him. Lemon, maybe you could take him over Lemon. I know people would probably flip-flop those two.
I think if you
Um,
wanted to take him over any of the receivers,
really.
even Mendoza, like if you're in need of running back, it's a great spot that he landed in. Like
It is.
I don't hate going running back because running back's hard to come by.
It does feel like good value, but just in general, I mean, I know you haven't done Dynasty before, but this is for a end of the first round running back who like didn't have a massive profile in college to go six. That's pretty early.
All right,
Like
all
I think
right.
in years past drafts, he would be at the end of the first. But next went KC Concepcion, and then just now actually Ty Simpson got picked at 108.
All right.
So
How many teams?
12 teams. We still got guys like Sadiq, Omar Cooper, Denzel Boston,
Nice.
Stowers. Chris Bell is up there. So,
A lot of
yeah,
good
maybe
names.
I'll make a move. I'll make a move for Chris Bell, get in
Hey,
the second round.
maybe he'll fall to the third. I don't know if he's like a known name to be honest. So
I know.
maybe
We'll
he could
see.
fall there.
I
But
might have to make a move to go get him just for this take.
all
Just
right,
to,
all right. Yeah. All right, so there we have two takes each so far. We got one more each, and we'll wrap up there. And so why don't you get us going, Vinny, with your last take here?
yeah, this is the one I feel really good about. I know we disagreed on this a little bit in terms of our receiving rankings of the top three. But my hot take is going to be that Makai Lemon finishes as the top overall rookie wide receiver scorer from this class. So that's obviously above Carnell Tate and Jordyn Tyson, who were drafted in the top 10 above Makai Lemon. Um, again, this is a hot take, so
Mhm.
not going to have like crazy information as to convince you as to why this will happen. But a lot of my takes are based on the situation at hand for the team And for me, as I was kind of rethinking how the Eagles went about this offseason, let's recap a little bit. AJ Brown is out the door, all but out the door. Obviously, he's still on the Eagles at this point, but if you haven't noticed, we've talked about it in past episodes. Schefter said he's gone. He's going to most likely the Patriots, but he's going to be traded. And then right away, that news comes out. The draft is in the next couple of weeks. They address the need immediately. So in my head, it is a run first offense overall. We saw the year Saquon can have. But if that's the case and you just want to let Devonta Smith be the guy, why would you spend a first round pick on a receiver? So as I think about it more, it's just they felt that this was a necessity for their offense to continue to function at an elite level, which we've seen it do. So they addressed replacing AJ Brown immediately and with a top 20 pick in Makai Lemon. We've seen Jalen. I know he gets a lot of crap for, being a poor thrower, and rightfully so. He's had some rough games last season, but we've seen him support two elite receivers. And in my mind, that's the differential between Tyson and Lemon and even Tate, because young quarterbacks for both Tate and Tyson, but then you have an experienced Super Bowl winning quarterback that has supported fantasy receivers in AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, both guys that go top 1,000 yards every season. So I'm not saying Makai Lemon will be AJ Brown immediately. I just feel like people are sort of underrating the impact he could have and the kind of direction the team took right after trading AJ Brown, or coming out that they would trade AJ Brown, that it seems like he's going to have a role. Obviously Stowers is there, but Goddard's still there. So there are names in this offense that could make this take difficult. I just feel like in terms of immediate best situation to produce in, it's for me, it's Lemon. Not in terms of volume, that might get the points there, but I think best situation, best offense, it's Lemon, and I think that's gonna override maybe the volume that Tate and Tyson might get.
Yeah, I think this is a fun take, right? Like, if you actually take a look at the board here, right? Tate, Tyson, Lemon, Concepcion, I know people are in on him. Even Omar Cooper, right? There's a number of guys. Antonio Williams, people are in on. I just talked about Chris Bell. There's a number of guys that could absolutely end up being the top scorer from this class. And I
Mhm.
think you could extend that to 6 to 8 guys, maybe, where you could say, "Hey, I think this guy could finish number one." So to go with the guy who's getting the ball thrown from Jalen Hurts, it's definitely a spicy take. But I do agree. I think, as I was going through trying to find my third, even my second hot take, it was like, could I say Stowers outscores Lemon? And that would be a fun one because I like Stowers, but I couldn't get there. I think Lemon is going to be the second best receiver on this team. I think they'll still use Goddard, but Goddard's getting a little older now. Like, they took some time to re-sign him. I think Lemon's going to play a little bit more on the outside than he probably has been. I don't think he's going to be a pure slot guy, so that could open some stuff up for Lemon too. If he that his game can translate out there, I think he will play a lot in the slot, and maybe he just becomes a go-to guy for Hurts. So I don't mind the take at all. I don't agree, and you'll see why in a second with my last one, but I absolutely could get on board with the thought process behind it.
Yeah, no, and again, you're pointing out that being in the slot as his primary, I feel like beside that's different than the other two guys in Tyson and Tate. And like you mentioned, other guys could creep in, but I feel like names right away that you think of are Tate and Tyson because of the capital to finish above him. So yeah, the slot ability and that the day one role he's going to have, I just think, like you mentioned, could put him above those top guys. But yeah, let's hear your last one.
Yeah, real quick though, I was almost gonna say, I was thinking about like, oh, what if I did like an Opoi one? I was looking up some hot takes on like Reddit and shit, and
Yeah.
some guy said like Casey Concepcion finishes as offensive rookie of the year. And honestly, there's a lot of opportunity for volume there. Like, I know people are in on Concepcion. As you said, he just went at like what, the 107 in your dynasty draft. So like,
Yeah, 107. Yep.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Concepcion could be a name too. I think you can kind of, at this point you can kind of lump him in with the top three guys and say there's almost like a top four in terms of fantasy. And to me, that's how I feel. There is very clearly that top three when it came to the NFL draft, but I kind of want to put KC Concepcion in there now too, in terms of like fantasy potential. So yeah, I like the
You're
take with Lemon.
you are right. Concepcion does kind of feel like a forgot about name,
Yeah,
and these three have just kind of been grouped together the whole time. I think it's just the quarterback situation that
for sure.
scaring everyone off. But that's the point of hot takes. You got to take your stand.
For sure. Yeah. My last hot take and my favorite one. So I started with this one, and then the other two, they sounded a lot better as I talked about them. They were fun to talk about. But this one is by far my favorite. And I went Titan heavy because this one's about Carnell Tate. So Carnell Tate and Nick Singleton. But my take is that Carnell Tate is going to top 1,100 yards in year one. And this is a spicy take for sure. This also kind of just says like he will finish as the top wide receiver if you want to say that as well. But I went 1,100 yards. I think there's a potential there. Only 8 receivers have done so in the last 10 years. So this is like elite company if Carnell Tate does this. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Puka Nakua, Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Michael Thomas. Those are elite names, and those are the 8 who have done it in the last 10 years. Lad may be the worst, but like still, I mean, he was very productive that rookie year. All of these guys walked in with a lot of talent and a space for a ton of targets, and I think that's really important here as I continue talking. Carnell Tate now, he walks into a room with no one outside of Wan'Dale Robinson. So there's a space for a ton of targets. I think it could be Tate, and I've fully shifted going from, maybe Wan'Dale still leads in targets and receptions. I do think Tate is going to lead this team there, and Wan'Dale will be the second guy. I mean, Tate just got 4th overall pick. So I think that's important. He's walking in with the space for a ton of targets, whether Wan'Dale leads or not. And he has a lot of talent. He comes from Ohio State, which we know is wide receiver U. And I know there's the concern that he was the second best receiver on the team, but I looked into this a little more. Well, let's see what that actually means. Garrett Wilson on Ohio State was also the second best wide receiver on his own team at that time. And he also topped 1,100 yards, as I just mentioned. So I think that's really important. Like, there's these guys who are like the second best on their team for some time, and then they come into the draft and they're actually really, really good. It was him with Olave at the time, and then JSN got drafted a year after them. And then, we consider like the offenses, right? And I really think we can brush off the QB concerns because Garrett Wilson, for example, got 1,100 yards with a combination of Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, and Mike White. Brian Thomas Jr. did it with Trevor Lawrence before this good season with Liam Cohen and Mac Jones. Malik Neighbors did it with Daniel Jones. Again, this was when he was a Giant. He wasn't good as a Giant. Drew Lock and Danny DeVito, or not even Tommy DeVito. Jeez, it would be even worse if it was Danny DeVito. But, I mean, that just says, like, these guys can do it. Talent can really outdo the QB situation. And I honestly think Cam Ward is considered and can be considered a upgrade from all of those QBs I just listed for those 3 receivers. So I don't think this is a bad situation he's walking into with the QB concerns. I think Cam Ward's pretty good. He started improving over the back half of the year where he threw for, I think, 10 touchdowns and only 1 pick. Like that's good. So he showed signs of improvement. He gets an upgrade here with Carnell Tate. I think it's very possible it happens. He also has Dayball, who he was the one who got the ball to Malik Neighbors in his rookie season. And lastly, Ohio State is wide receiver U with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Emeka Egbuka being first-round picks in the NFL draft in the last 5 years. Sure, Marv has not shown up just yet. Egbuka flamed out the last half of the second half of last year. But these other guys are all elite. JSN just finished as the number 2 wide receiver overall. Olave finishes number 6, I believe. Garrett Wilson has probably a top 6 finish. He was being drafted as a first rounder in fantasy drafts. Egbuka, I mean, had he been on pace and finished the way he did the first half of last season, we'd be talking about him as a first round pick. It's just he comes from a great school. He was in a great situation, and I watched the tape. Yeah, I think Jeremiah Smith is that good. He's that generational where he completely, like, Carnell Tate's
Yeah,
completely overshadowed. Like, I
yeah,
mean, he is that overshadowed. I watched the tape. This guy is good. Like, he is, and I think he has the ability to be elite. And, I'm pushing my chips in on Tate here, but I think it's a good situation. And I'm kind of in on the Titans a little bit to improve quite a bit. So I think to make it a spicy take, because I do think he will be solid for fantasy football, I'm saying he's going to top 1,100 yards.
yeah. No, I mean, you make a lot of good points. Honestly, like, I think the point of Jeremiah Smith being that good and this guy has become overshadowed is a really good one that I think needs to be put out there more, because I fell victim to it too. When I see Malik Neighbors and he's like talking about he wasn't even the best receiver on his own team. I'm like, yeah, he's right. Like, how is he going number 4? But you're right. I think it's just he's that good that people forget about this guy. And I like the Garrett Wilson, like, sort of profile, not playing style wise, but just comp in terms of situation, because of the fact that I've been a firm believer in terms of quarterback. Like, we saw CJ Stroud bring a team to the playoffs right after being picked 1 overall, like in his rookie year. He just did this stuff right away. You see it, like, all the time with just receivers as well, that they make their situation better just based off of their playing style, their ability alone. So I think that's what we're looking for. And like, we throw these guys away of like the Jets, Omar Cooper, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and even Carnell Tate, even though he went 4 overall, it's a tough situation a little bit. We don't know what to expect, but it's easy to throw that stuff away. But then someone will always show their true talent and that they're a playmaker, and it doesn't matter who's throwing them the ball. So I like the take. Tate is the one I was worried about in my Makai Lemon take, of that he
Yeah,
just feels like the easy favorite to do all this, but you took it a step further and he's going to have a monster year.
yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
yeah, for sure. I think he's going like, I want to check now, but I think he's going like back into the 20s in terms of, ADP. Let's see. Carnell Tate, wide receiver 30 overall. Like, to me, that feels like a steal. Like if I can get Carnell Tate at wide receiver 30 as like maybe my wide receiver 3, man, I really bought myself into this too. I just think Tate's just, again, like I said with Chris Bell, just go watch his tape. He is a great player. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, there's our hot takes. That was fun. I mean, last year was fun too. I think we went a little spicier this year almost. Um,
And we talked about that beforehand too. That like we gotta go a little further here,
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
kind of put the stamp on it, because at the end of the day, I think in my rankings, I don't know if that would affect my rankings. This is a hot take episode, so I might still have Tate ahead of Lemon
Hmm.
in terms of, but I think there's potential for Lemon. So these don't necessarily mean that like Lemon is ahead of Tate. You know what I mean? I think you'd agree that these mean that there's potential and it's a hot take at heart. So.
Yeah.
Um, don't confuse that with rankings because it might look different.
Yeah, it's very clear this is about guys we like too, I think today in these hot
Yeah,
takes. Like
definitely.
last year, I think it was a little less about guys we like. Like you went a lot of top heavy guys. I
Hmm.
went more like, some general ones too. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like I only had one hot take, like one really hot take. You definitely had a hot take with Genty topping 1,200 yards.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I think we got spicier today, and it definitely, hopefully, we'll check back in. We'll check back
yeah.
at the end of the
Let's check.
season.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll
yeah.
do that like recap like we did, you know, the end of the year this year too. We'll do that again, see how we did. But these
Absolutely.
these will definitely be fun to keep an eye on for sure. Next episode you'll get next week, I believe. So we'll continue with weekly for now, and unless something pops up, but. It'll probably be, I think we're going to do a start bench cut again. We had a lot of fun with that last year and kind of like a rankings check. So where guys are in the rankings and, how we feel about that, like questionable situations. Like I know the QB we had last year, just for example, was Justin Fields at QB 12. Well, where do we feel about that? And I know running back was like Christian McCaffrey at running back 6. And I know both of us were like, well, that feels low. So we'll be doing that as well. We'll be doing like, okay, well, we got to do a rankings check here. Um, But that's what we got in store for you for next week. Hopefully you enjoyed this hot takes episode, little dynasty talk in the middle there too, but definitely a lot of fun from our end for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I mean we'll see, like we said, we gotta monitor these and see how they play out or starting to pan out in season. But
Yeah,
um yeah, fun
for sure.
episode.
Yeah. All right. We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Peace, everyone.